Hi, my name is Carol Starr, and I'm an astrologer, and I am so excited to be with Pearl today. Ooh.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Once you leave the clouds, you're under. Ain't it funny how there ain't no rain or clear? Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror? Now nobody gonna steal my sunshine or turn my blue sky gray. All I know is at the end of the day, wildflowers grow when there ain't no shade.
Hey everybody, this is Pearl and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Pearl. I am so excited to have you guys here today. We have a special guest, but I want to just update you on a few things. We just got back from our 7th annual pajama retreat where we had 26 amazing women who came into the retreat and were so excited to share with us their journey, their dreams, and their destinations and where they wanted to be in their life. And so I can't wait for next year's retreat, and we'll share more later how to join us. But today I have a special guest, and I talked with this beautiful lady a few weeks ago and said, you should come on the show because I remember growing up and reading the paper when we used to get a paper and reading about the astrology reading for the day. And I just love this energy that Carol brings. So I'm excited to introduce Carol Starr. She has been reading astrology charts for over 30 years. And during her career, she has authored 2 syndicated columns, her own radio show, TV spots, and keynote speaker, bringing astrology down to earth and helping us along the way. Carol, welcome to the show today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Pearl. It's been a while. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So I always like to start out with, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what led you to what you do today.
Okay. And if I put a little humor in it, is it okay?
Of course, we all like humor.
I get silly. Astrologers are allowed to get silly too, right? Anyway, I started astrology and I went to school I was going to become a paralegal. And my husband told me, well, that'll last one day. I proved him wrong. I got through to the right to the middle of the class and left all my books and left. Okay. So a friend said to me, you really need to have a chart done, astrology chart. I said, what is an astrology chart? She said, just go get one. And I did. And I was smitten. Okay. And I took the course and to learn all the details about it. And that's in those days, we used to have to put them together by hand with math. Now you press a button online and out comes my reading for me. And I just felt, I want to do something with astrology. So I hired my best friend to call radio stations and acting as my PR director. And I got on radio, and that was my first start. And then I had a TV show. Then I had my very own radio show. And also I was out speaking. I was called myself a humorous speaker. You don't want to call yourself a comedian because that's too much pressure, but humorous, there's a lot of leeway. So I would get up in front of audiences and have fun with astrology and get people up and have a good time. And also I love to write. And now today there's a whole new world of the internet. And it is a big change, because in the 90s, you wrote a book or you did something, you made phone calls, you wrote letters or you sent emails too, and you got to talk to somebody. That was so exciting. Today, you got to be able to put that presence online. And I'm learning so much about digital marketing. I thought I knew. I don't know how to do it, but I understand it now. And it is amazing. And there are people out there that really can help you with it and help you go. And, so I'm excited about that.
Oh my gosh. I think it's so cool. Like, okay, let's talk about you. You go to do this class and your husband's like, oh, it's going to last a day. And then you're like, I want to prove him wrong. I'm going to last a few more days than a day. I think that's so much fun.
Didn't do it. Yeah.
I love that. And then like, how creative was that to say, I'm going to have my friend call and pretend she's my PR person. I mean, we get so wrapped up in business being like, I got to hire this person, got to hire that person. why not try something different? You just never know, where it's going to
Right.
go.
And I couldn't afford to hire somebody, and I didn't even have the know-how. That was, that was quite a few years ago. There was a whole different world out there,
Right. Yeah.
and um, I just felt she was good, and she got me on the show, and and it started me off, and it took a while. It didn't all happen at one time, but I was very tenacious, and I stuck with it. And today, all that doesn't quite work. You've got to figure out how to be tenacious. It doesn't help just to be.
Yeah. And I love it. That's such a great reminder for our listeners that are listening that it doesn't always work out the way we want it to. And it's okay to try something different, like you did with your friend, right? And it's okay to fall forward, as I have a client who likes to call it. She likes to say, I'm going to fail forward. It's okay to do that, because then you learn, when you pick yourself back up, you've learned what's worked, what's not worked. And it doesn't always work out the first time, right?
No, or the second, or the third, or the fourth. And I've learned, in my work career, I've had a lot of different businesses along the way, a lot. And I know that the percentages of things working out are not always good. And so I move on to the next. Okay, this isn't the right thing. We'll figure another way out how to do it.
Yeah.
I am on TikTok, and I was just kind of struggling along. I thought, what am I going to do? And I was doing some videos. They didn't work. I thought, I got to come up with a great title. And so I thought, the most beautiful woman of the zodiac, up to 4 million views.
That's awesome.
That started me off. And that's where I get all my business. That's where people find me.
That's fantastic. And how creative and different that to do that on TikTok. And that's really what's really great. I think we have to remember, like, when we are starting our businesses, we don't have to copy somebody else. We can be our own selves, and also find a way to be creative about it that is, catchy, or whatever you want to say. And, for you to say I just love that. Like, and I love that you're saying that affirmation. I'm the most beautiful astrologist out there. I just love that you're putting that out to the world as well. So tell us, like, okay, so your friend came to you and said, you should do this astrology thing, and you started it, but tell us why. What's driven you to continue it? Because how many years have you been doing this now? Over 30 years?
Yeah.
So
because I wanted to be well known, and I wanted to get the word out. And I didn't realize how powerful astrology was at the time. And it's taken a lot of years. And sometimes I can't believe some of the stuff myself, because I think, it's been around for 2,000-3,000 years or whatever. It's got to work. And there's always a few that kind of like, oh, they don't believe in it. They don't. And that's fine. Okay. Because we have a lot of modalities out there to follow in life. And we are in a spiritual time right now. And spiritual is a big word, where it wasn't 10, 15, 20 years ago. I will tell you that the charts that I do are people, all ages. I get from 15 up to 65 or 70 or whatever. And they're all stuck. And they all want to know why their lives aren't working. They want to know what to do. They are confused. And this is another way to kind of figure out the path. So I like to help. My goal is to help people. And of course, everybody likes to get paid for what they do, because I hate to say this. If you give away services, they're just not appreciated.
Oh my gosh, I so second that. I mean, it's often I have clients who are getting something for free and they don't show up to the appointment because they have no skin in the game, right? They're like, oh, well,
exactly.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's so true. So let's go back to energy, spirituality, and how all different ages. I totally agree with you. There's so much talk now about the energy and the empath and the spiritual stuff, or the higher power, and all that stuff that we were hearing a lot about. And, I always say, for me, my belief is, of course, in God. And I believe that he's created all of us to have this talent, right? And we don't tune into the talent, like what you're doing with your astrology. We don't tune into the talent. We cheat ourselves, but then we cheat others from receiving the gift that he's giving us. And whether you believe in God or the higher power or energy, or whatever that is, there's something there that drives you, that centers
exactly.
you, right? It just gives you that center, that peace. And I often talk about the mom gut. I've got a great young girl that I love to death, and I talk about her, go with your gut. Whatever that gut is telling you, that's you go with. And my boys are,
oh God, I've said that, and every time I do a reading, when the one of the houses about that, follow your intuition and your instincts, because you will know if something doesn't feel right. And so many times I have gone ahead when something didn't feel right. And I don't want to use the word regret, but I kind of wish that I hadn't do it. But before we go on, I have to ask the most important question.
Okay, let's go for it. What's the most important question?
When's your birthday?
My birthday is October 20th, 1964. I'm about to be 59 years young in a few weeks.
Okay.
Yes.
October 20th. So you're still a Libra. You're just in there. And I'm a Libra too.
Yay.
So we're good. Yes,
Yay.
we're good. Yeah, we're the best sign of the zodiac. Actually, it's the only sign that nobody says anything bad about.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, Scorpios are, oh my God, and Virgos are, all the different comments that come up all the time. So I needed to know that. I know there is a spiritual need today, and there is a need to find answers.
Yeah.
And I know the difference between that and 20 or 30 years ago. It's a huge, huge difference.
Right.
And people were busy. And now even no matter where they are in life, whatever their walk is in life, whatever their talk is in life, it's all about spiritual. And you know that when you go on different sites, even on Facebook or any of the social sites, spiritual has become the key word of our language right now. Because I think people are afraid. The world is in a kind of a scary place right now. I'm not talking political, I promise. I don't do that. But there's just too many things happening that we're afraid, and inflation is high and we're scared. So what they need answers or help.
Yeah.
And I can't solve their life problems, but I have people directed them on a better path. And that's my goal, directing on a better path. No, I'm not going to solve your problems. You have to do that.
Right. You have to put in the work, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But why don't you try this, or why don't you go for this? And I'll tell them they have a strength in an area, and they're all excited about that.
Yeah.
And I get follow-ups, and people feel better about life. They're doing things. And, I also work on a psychic line. I wanted to mention that. So I get calls where I have to solve problems in 3 or 4 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. Because they want to get off fast, So
I was that brings up a question I have. So tell me, is there a difference between an astrology reader and the person who's like that psychic or medium? What is the difference?
Yes, totally. There's several types. Really, there's a tarot card reader, and there's the psychic, and psychic ability comes in different forms and shapes. I'm one that I can look at somebody and I hear their voice and they tell a problem. I know what's going to happen to them. I just do. I can't go point, oh, this is going to happen. I don't do that.
Right.
And really, you have to be in tune with a person to be psychic.
Right. Yeah.
And the astrologer, we read the chart, but also I'm very empathic. So I feel people. I know I walk into a room, I know what's going on with people. And when they open their mouths up, and I always tell my friends, never tell me anything if you don't want me to forget it, because I do remember the stupidest details. Somebody wore a pink dress 10 years ago and they say blue. I know you wore a pink dress. Yeah.
Well, and I'm glad you clarified that, because I do remember, like, the other thing too is, Carol, is that when you are working with somebody or reading the charts and things like that, if you see something that's kind of alarming, I'm going to kind of give you an example. So let me give you an example. So my mother-in-law, what was that?
I'm sorry. We have phone lines that ring back and forth on our phone. So I turn the phone
you're
on.
good. So my mother-in-law, she in 1997, I believe it was. Yeah, my son was born in 97. She had gone, my father-in-law was ill. He had an open heart surgery. And in her town where she lived in Niagara Falls, she went into the shopping mall, and there was I guess there was a psychic in the mall or whatever. So she went in, and she called me later that evening. She goes, your dad's gonna die. I'm like, Mom, why are you talking like that? What's wrong with Dad? Like, I'm thinking something's happened. They're going to the hospital or something. She's like, no, I just went into the mall and I went and saw the psychic, and she told me that he's gonna die. And I'm like, listen, stop. I said, I don't know this person, but typically when that happens, they don't typically tell you bad things like that, right? And so I, for fun, had gone to a psychic, and I lived in Virginia at the time. So there was a psychic that a friend of mine introduced me to, that I guess she had worked with John Walsh when he lost his son Adam, and he was doing that finding missing children thing. And so my friend goes, come on, let's go have fun. So I remember going to her, and I walked in there and said nothing. My friend's like, don't say anything at all. Just sit down. She'll talk to you. I'm like, okay, fine. So I walked out of there, and she told me that my sister was going to have a boy. And I knew my sister was pregnant, but I had no clue what she was having. She said she's going to have a boy. And then, so I said my mother-in-law, and it came true. My sister did have a boy. So
But you had a 50-50 chance there too.
right, exactly, right. But I mean, she didn't know my sister was pregnant, so that was
Oh, okay. That's pretty
so,
amazing.
yeah. So that was pretty amazing. Like I said nothing. She's like, you have a sister, and I didn't say like she said, and she told us when we sat down, I'm going to ask you questions and don't respond, right? So don't answer me. So you're supposed to just sit quietly. So fast forward, I said to my mom, I go, listen, I went to the psychic. It was fun. I don't know, but I want to put your mind at ease. How about we take a ride when you come visit? We'll just go visit her, right? So we went and I told my mother-in-law, don't say nothing, sit down, let her just talk to you, right? And so she comes out and it was funny because she's like, so why didn't you tell me? I said, tell you what, your news. I'm like, what news? She's like, that you're gonna have a child. I'm like, when am I having a child? I'm like, anybody can say I'm having a child. She goes, no, but before the year's over, you're gonna have a child. I'm like, mom, this is like, you know, like May or something. It was there's no way in 9 months I was gonna have a child, right? And I said, well, I think you better call your daughter. Maybe you got the wrong daughter, you know, because my mother-in-law was like a mom to me. And I said, you better call Amy because it might be Amy that's pregnant. She just hasn't told you. She said, no, no, no. I said, Mom, but what did she tell you about Dad? Did she say anything about Dad? And she said, the only thing she said is keep an eye on his health. I'm like, okay, well, we'll keep an eye on his health. And we just left it at that. Well, a couple of months later, like 6 weeks later, my father-in-law passed from heart challenges. And that was in July. And August, we got the phone call about my son was available for adoption. So we went, you know, this lady, she told, you know, what she said was, you know, absolutely came true and everything. But I always wondered, you know, about astrology versus psychic. And so my question to you is, Carol, my question though is, with like truly, like I was really disturbed that this lady had told my mother-in-law that my father-in-law was going to die, right? And then you know, then you put this heaviness on some of this worry, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, first of all, there are some wonderful, absolutely wonderful psychics. And there's a lot of phonies out there because it's so easy to be a phony. You know, I can tell, I won't go into that because they can watch your eyes when you're talking. They have all kinds of tricks. And I believe in the really top psychics. And in a moment, I'm going to tell you about how my mother was channeled. It's really that she came back. I'll tell you about that in a second because that's always fun. And as far as astrology goes, I don't look at everything. I don't look bad or good. I don't do a chart with bad or good. I do a chart with challenges and good things and talents and abilities. You know, there's a death thing that shows up every 2 years and people don't die every 2 years. I don't believe in that. I think there's a time, you know, all the planets are retrograde and there's challenges, you know, and I know that in the month of August, people had so many relationship problems because Venus was retrograde. That only happens once every 18 months, you know, and when I do readings, I have people, they're on call. I'm on call, sort of. They'll call up. Am I going on an airplane? Is it safe? I'm going to the doctor. Is this good? You know, and they'll just call me for different issues that they have. And I look up on the chart and it's right most of the time. And astrology is about following that map of the planets. I like to do that. Of course, I'm empathic and I ask people every time I do a reading, what do you want to learn? I don't want to just read your chart. I'm reading you. So let's say I've got a difficult relationship and I want to know what school's going to be like. I want to know this. They have questions about their life. And there was one relationship I kept feeling she should get out of it. She should get out of it. And I told her the reason you need to get out of this relationship because you don't really love him. You're staying with him for the wrong reasons. It's an old relationship and it's hard to break up. Because even breaking up with someone you're unhappy with leaves you sad. There's no happy way to end a relationship. So I don't tell people they are going to break up because I don't know that. I only know that it might be. Now, when I do my psychic thing, that's a whole different thing. People will tell me about this relationship and I know it's bad or I know it's good. I just feel it. I can talk about it. And I tell them the best way to handle it is from human nature. Okay. When a guy isn't paying attention to you enough, don't be texting him every day. Wait till he comes forth and he will. It's a physics law and they always do. Okay. So I don't say that, on June 14th, that this is going to happen or that's going to happen. I can't do that. Human nature is very tricky and so is the universe. Now, the one you went to, that's pretty amazing. That is a psychic from a different type of that feels everything, knows everything. And the police department hires psychics. I believe all this. That's not my kind of psychic, but I help people I have a list of people that feel thank you and they're grateful to me for what I do, because a lot of it's common sense. A lot of it is just, I know when something's wrong with somebody. I know when my husband, I get upset or something, I can see there's a change, a little tiny change that other people wouldn't notice. I notice everything. Okay, I do. I don't always like that, but it's there. It is there. So it is about telling people that you're going to die. Well, you're not programming them. I also feel a lot of this is programming, right? Yeah, yeah. So
No, I agree with you. And that's what I told my mother about. I wanted to give her peace. We knew my father was sick, so I was like, in the back of my head, I'm like, well, sure, anybody could say that because he's sick. And if you told her she was sick,
exactly, there's a lot of
yeah.
ease in what I call psychic cheating.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the one I took her to, like, she was in Gettysburg. I don't even know if she's still around or not, but she did work with John Walsh on his show and stuff. And I didn't know that till later. Like, my friend's like, you understand who she is? I'm like, I had no clue. I just went. So I said, I just went for the fun of it, sat down and said, okay, I won't say nothing at all. And I talked nothing. She recorded it for you and then you leave. Like, she doesn't have you asking. Like, literally, you say nothing. There's no conversation, except for her talking to you, which was a beautiful thing. So you said something a second ago. So how does that work in a relationship when you are like, have this ability to have, like, how do you turn it off?
You can't, I do and I don't. Okay. I think it's my hyper nature just to see stuff and to feel things, and we've been married a long time and we get along really, really well. And but what I'm sensitive to and what people are not sensitive to, and this is why people are always surprised when, the marriage is over. Like, oh my God, people's behavior changes if they're with somebody else or something, very subtle changes that you watch for. I mean, maybe your husband gets up and reads the newspaper every morning and suddenly he's not reading the newspaper, or it doesn't mean something's wrong, or they're suddenly a little more cautious about buying shaving lotion, or their clothes look better, or they're suddenly working out a little more. It doesn't mean that, but it can. And also their attitudes change. Either they get cold to you or overly affectionate. Okay. There's just things that people do. They change their behavior. I always know when I see somebody in a room, I know something's wrong with them, or they're angry with me, or they're angry about something, just by looking at their face across the room. So it just does that. But I want to spend a minute or two on talking about channeling, because a lot of people don't believe in channeling, with the dead.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. My mother had been dead a couple of years. Okay, so I wasn't focused on it, but I noticed things happening around the house. I thought they kept happening. A picture was slanted. I put down a mug and it seemed like there'd be two mugs out there, or just a lot of stuff. So I called up this bookstore. I had a gift basket business in Houston for a lot of years. And I called up and I had to deliver a gift basket there. And I went in and I said, do you know anybody who channels with the dead? They said, no. I got a call back. The woman just happened to come in the store to buy her yearly calendar. And she said to call. She didn't charge me. She came to my office. And the first thing she said was, I have pictures of cats all over. Oh, your mother just hates those animals, doesn't she? And where she was talking to my mother. My mother said those goddamn doctors didn't know what they were doing. She was in the room. And she said, tell Carol that you tell my kids that I really did my best with them, even though I know it wasn't perfect. But the best thing she did, she says, tell Carol, she has really good taste. My mother used to always say that, to go buy a frame and she'll know what picture to put in it and put a rose in front of the picture. So I forgot about that. And I was buying stuff for my gift baskets and I picked up a frame, looked really pretty. I thought I'd use it. And I took it home and I remembered, and I got this picture out. It fit right in it. And I had a gold rose. And to this day, it is still sitting over there. And then mother came back years later. My husband lost his wallet at the store. He went back, lost it. Okay. And I think we got robbed in between, or something happened, but really quickly is that a couple months later, I was going into my purse and there was the wallet sitting on top of my purse after 2 months. And I would have known it. Yeah. So I do believe that people come back. And I also believe that you can, if you have the ability, but if you ever notice strange things happening around your house, they're back.
Okay, so I want to tell you, you're talking about this and it just reminded me. So we lost our son last year in July. July 25th at 25 years old.
Oh, so sorry.
Thank you. And so he used to hate our smoke alarms in the house when the batteries would go off and they'd make all the noise. And he would just like, I hate those things. And because he'd have to change the batteries for us, right? He used to get frustrated. So it was about, let's see, he passed July. It was about the beginning of the first week of September. Everybody had gone home. It was just Chuck and I in the house. It was quiet. It was a Wednesday morning. I'll never forget. It was a Wednesday morning. I was going to my network meeting and the smoke alarm in our bedroom like chirped. And I said to my husband, oh, we're going to have to change the smoke alarm. And we had just changed them. Like he said, I don't understand. We just changed them like a month ago, like just before Matthew passed. I'm like, I don't know what's beeping. It means something's wrong with it, right? So I came home and I said, did it burp? He goes, I haven't heard it all day. I'm like, okay. So we're sitting there, we're watching a show, we're chit-chatting. And all of a sudden the one in my bedroom starts chirping loudly. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So now my husband can't climb the ladder. So we had to go get the thing. I had to climb up and take it off. We get that one done. We sit down and the one in my husband's den starts going off. I'm like, what the heck? And then I'm like, all of a sudden, then the one upstairs in my office goes off. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So finally I said, we get the one up here changed. As we're changing the one up here, we haven't got to the one in the office downstairs because I'm gonna have to move stuff. So we said, let's start upstairs first because my husband had to climb the stairs. The one in my office here goes off. We take it out. I'm like, I can't get it back in. I put a new battery in. It's still chirping. Like it would not shut off. I'm like, forget it. Just give it to me. Like Matthew used to do. I'll just take the thing off and I'll just set it in my office. I get down from the ladder. The one in the bedroom across the hall from me goes off. I'm like, what the heck? And finally I said, gosh darn it, Matthew, stop it with the smoke alarm.
You know he was there. You know
I knew he was there. And
yeah.
So we go downstairs, and I'm not kidding you. And for the listeners, you're probably going, this is cuckoo. But I'm telling you, we were putting new batteries in, and they were still going off. And it was like, even we hit the reset, we did everything. I Googled everything. And I finally told Chuck, I said, he just doesn't want these daggone covers on this thing. And we both decided we have another smoke alarm system in the house. We both decided, fine, Matthew, we hear you. We're going to take him down for whatever reason. But I told my husband, I go, that's his energy in this house right here.
It's often when they're in limbo. It hasn't. Is there any reason that he didn't want to go on to heaven? Which you feel?
I feel like because he left so fast, because it happened so quickly. I think he had a lot of things that he was worried about us being behind. It was a DUI that he passed in. So he had. I think that unsure of how we were going to be, I think is what the challenge was. Yeah. And
I think I feel like my mother was in limbo. She said she didn't want to go to heaven because her horrible relatives were there. I thought, you have to know my mother to know this is just like her, you know.
Yeah.
And so I do believe they come back.
Yeah.
And often come back when they're not ready to go on to the final step.
Yeah.
And, because we lose our skin, we lose our bodies, but we don't lose our spirits.
Right.
And I think our spirits go on. And I don't know that I believe totally in after lifetime, but we can't know for sure.
Right. Yeah, we can't know.
You know, but I do feel there could be something for us that's totally different than we know of. Certainly probably a lot easier because, you know, life, no matter how good life is, Pearl, it's not easy.
No, absolutely. It's definitely not easy. There's challenges every day in our lifetime. And, you know, there's having coaches, whether there's coaches like myself or astrology coaches like yourself. It's really important to have that in our lives so that we have somebody to, you know, I mean, it was such a taboo back in the day to go talk to a therapist. It was such a taboo to say, I'm asking.
Oh God, yes.
And today it's so accepting, which I think is a beautiful thing, to accept that I might need to go talk to a therapist, or I may need a coach. You know, some people truly believe strongly that it should just always be a therapist. And, you know, I had a conversation with somebody recently to say, in a meeting we're in, to share that, you know, therapists help you deal with stuff that was in the past. Like, how do you work through the things that happened in your past? And people like yourself and like me, who's a coach, we help see what's happening for you in the future. The availability of the things that, yes, we've gone through these things in our life. There's been challenges in our life, and they could be horrible things and you know, very traumatic things as a child or even as an adult, right? However, they don't have to define who we are. They don't have to hold us back. And if we can have somebody that can help us see and feel that the future is bright and there's opportunities for us, and to step out of that fear that's keeping you from putting that first step forward, I think is so, so important. And whether it's, you know, somebody sitting down and having a conversation with you and your abilities that you have, or sitting down with a coach like myself to say, help me create the roadmap to the life that I want. Where do
And
I
that's what astrology is, a roadmap. That's the first thing when I do a video report is that I said, it's a roadmap. You're in your car, you go left, you can go right, you can make a U-turn, or you can just get out of your car. You have that will to make decisions in life. And I think that's really important. Everybody, still get this. Today, people, kids and adults are very knowledgeable about astrology, but they don't know how to interpret because that takes years. And people tell me they're studying. And I said, don't read your own chart because you will not understand it. I don't even look at my chart. You have to know that there's so many factors involved. Right. And also they say, well, Uranus is now, so my world is falling apart. I said, there's nothing to do with Uranus. It has to do with you.
Right.
Right now, I do believe, Saturn is retrograde. And when the planets go retrograde, it means they appear to be going backwards. So whatever the sign they are, and we had a month here where everything is retrograde. So people are having some issues more. And of course, by November, when Saturn goes in direct motion, a lot of things will help people things out in life at that time.
Right.
And I don't like people to live by one planet or two planet or what's going on. You still are yourself and you can still control. Yeah, things are going to happen. And I'm not so sure that astrology tells you exactly what's going to happen. It's going to tell you that this might not work for you right now.
Right.
I tell people, don't make decisions this month. This is not a good month. But I said, plan, think, and wait, because an opportunity may come along or you may change your mind. Do I follow this advice? No.
I think that's great advice, though, and I think that's really important too, Carol, that we remember that, because plan, think, and wait. Because sometimes we plan something, we think it out, and we want to rush to it. And I think overall in life, that's great advice, is to plan something out, think about it, wait, and then even to take to the next level is ask somebody, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm feeling. How, what are you seeing for me? And I think it's powerful when we do those things, because like you said, we don't want to rush into things. And, that's your jam, is to study those things. I don't know that part, but I do know that for me, when I'm working on myself and even working with my clients, I'm like, let's think out. So if you were to go this way, what are some of the pros and cons of that action? And what are some of the pros and cons of this action? And then look at them. Then look at the big picture and ask yourself, what are my three options? And pick one of the options and go forward. Don't look back and say, oh, what if I took that option? Or what if I went that way? Or what if I watched this, part of my astrology map? No, just, step into it. And like you said, it's us, we are the ones who are responsible for our actions, and it's
so a lot of people don't feel that way. A lot of people that they're always blaming. They're always looking for, well, that's a big comment is, as soon as this happens, this is going to get better. And it doesn't work like that, because even when it happens, sometimes the catalyst is that it hasn't.
Right.
I remember this couple together, and they were in love, and I think I fixed them up. And he had a girlfriend who was always an ex-girlfriend who was always stalking him and doing it. It was really exciting. The girlfriend got out of the picture and the relationship ended. The catalyst of the relationship was that excitement and secret stuff. And once that was over with, the relationship didn't survive. And I think that we think as soon as we get a new house, we're going to be happy. Or as soon as we buy that new car, life is going to be good. Or as soon as we get that check, we're going to be rich. Life is just, if you get out of that mode, and I really work with people that are always waiting and wondering and whatever, and life is going to, sometimes you just have to sit back and say, I'm just living, and I'm a big fan of Abraham Hicks. Are you familiar?
No.
Oh my goodness. Well, check that out. Check out Abraham Hicks animated videos on YouTube. It's the power of the attraction. It's the law of attraction, and the secret in life is about just feeling. Don't wait. Don't I want my business to grow. I want my business to grow. It's already grown, and feel how it would be if all the it's a whole interesting concept. Been around a long time.
It's sort of an approach that I talk about. Oftentimes we talk about affirmations, right? And saying affirmations.
Yes.
And I say this, a friend of mine, Kari, introduced me to somebody. I can't remember her name. It's escaped me. But, and I love to share this now with my work with my clients is, we get up in the morning, we look in the mirror and we say, I'm going to have a beautiful day, or I have abundance in my life, right? Or I have all the money I have is in my life. Well, sometimes it's hard for us to believe that we're standing in front of the mirror going, when you don't feel pretty, or maybe you can't make a bill payment. You're like, yeah, I can't pay that bill today. So how do I feel that way? So I wish I could remember her name, but I love this. And this is something I've started doing is asking myself in the mirror in the morning, in what way can I continue to show up beautifully in my life? So then I'm asking my brain to ask the question. I'm telling my brain,
asking questions are powerful.
Right.
Very
Yeah.
powerful.
Right. And I'll say something like, and what actions will I be able to take today to help bring abundance into my life? So I'm not saying, because, it's hard to believe it. If you can't pay a bill, how can you stand there and say, oh, I have plenty of money, right? But if you can ask your brain to say, show me opportunities that will bring me the opportunity to bring money into my world that I need.
So you get into the vortex. She talks a lot about the vortex.
Yeah.
About being in there. And check her out, though. It used to be Jerry and Ethel. Jerry died. So now she calls it Abraham hits.
Okay.
And she's very popular. And they're short videos, 10 to 15 minutes.
That's awesome. I'll have to check her out.
Yeah. It's just, I think you'll just I listen to one every day. And it gets me out of that, oh God, business is slow today.
Right.
And as I listen to one, I get an order. I don't know.
I love it.
It comes in. And, of course, my business is feast or famine.
Yeah.
And it depends on I have someone I'm working with now, so I'm expanding. And another thing is to finding that right person. And I've had a few experiences. And I find that if I have a viral video, my website gets inundated with orders. And if it's slow on there, then I just have I still get business. And sometimes it's too much. Like last month, doing 60 readings a month is a lot.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because each one takes so much time. And I had like 60, so I was exhausted,
Well, that's a great question. So let me ask you a question. So somebody comes to work with you, Carol. Tell our listeners about that experience. Like, what can they expect when they come and they sign up to do a reading with you or to work with you? What's that?
Okay. First of all, I do either a written report, I do a FaceTime, or I send a video. And I go through their chart with the big PowerPoints, sun, moon, rising, Mercury, Venus, and Mars on their chart. And I blend them all together. You're not just a Libra, you're not just a Scorpio. How does this all work? And I go through the 12 houses, and each house represents another area of your life. And I also keep in front of me the questions that they wanted. Like, example, they'll show that they have Jupiter in the first house. So they're lucky with, let's just hypothetically, they're very lucky with themselves, with things that they try, and they can be experimental. And they want to know how well they're going to do if they try a new business. And I said, you got Jupiter in your house. It is not a guarantee. Work hard, be positive, and for you, it's going to work out. And it's just extra. And it could work out for everybody, but when you got Jupiter in there, you're just going to be luckier in life. Wherever Jupiter appears, there's luck. And also I do placements. Like there's a thing called the card to fortune. And that is from past lifetimes, but also when it appears, it's about your path in life. And perhaps it's in your fifth house. Your path in life is to be creative. Or the second house, you should be doing something with money and having money work. And all these placements, and the moon has a north and a south node. The north node is about what is our lessons we're learning in life. This is a big one from past lifetimes. So when I see it, your lessons might be with money. It might be with communications. Your lessons might be with yourself. And often I don't know why it all just kind of works out. In the 30 years, I'm sure I've had clients that felt that they didn't want to face up to it or wanted more, but I only had one really unhappy client. And I gave her money back. It wasn't worth it. I think she planned not to pay for it in the first place.
Gotcha.
So I let it go. I said to her on here, though, I wrote her back and I said, I have a service and I know wherever my name appears. And I said, if I see you bad mouthing me or saying bad things about me, this isn't going to work out well. I was very angry. She was so unhappy about it and so cruel. And the problem with her is that all she was focusing on, she had a stalker, or she thought, and that she wouldn't stop talking about that. So I couldn't do a reading for her.
Hmm.
I asked her questions. She said, all you did was ask questions. And well, of course I did, because I didn't know how to talk to her. It
Right.
was a FaceTime. It was a FaceTime.
Gotcha. So when a client has worked with you and they've done, walk through the reading and you provided that information, do typically they come back to ask for more questions or more
Yeah.
information?
I have a thing on my chart on my website that they have a follow-up, and it's a very reasonably priced. And I said, if you have anything special going on in your life, like you're getting married or you're looking for an important job, is it a good time to go for it? I actually research it out for you, like I do for my clients. And also, if you just want to know, maybe you have a different relationship, you want to know about her, I'll send you a 4 or 5 page report on what's going on for the year. I do
Gotcha.
offer. Yeah, I
Awesome.
just start offering that. Somebody said, honestly, people feel after they have a reading that they've learned everything they need to know about everything.
That's awesome.
And I see, if it were in person, it's a whole different thing. If I were doing readings, I'd say, I want to see you in a year, and I would follow up. But it's different when we're doing it this way. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I offer enough variety of readings, and I'm always working at changing things. And I have a special thing that I do, the sun, moon, and rising analysis with compatibility for a reasonable price, as a if you just want to learn something about yourself and don't want to spend a lot of money.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a question. So we love to talk about self-care here, and I love what you're doing, and I love all your work. Well, before I ask you this question about self-care, one question I did have in my mind. Let me go back a second. Who have you ever had a celebrity client you worked with?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. And yes, let's see here. Who we do. Oh my gosh, it's been a while. I'm trying to think. I have one currently. He's a well-known actor.
Awesome.
And I do the family for them. Yeah. I didn't know who he was until I saw him all over the TV set. Yeah. And I have directors, and I have people, I have psychologists.
Oh,
I have
cool.
yes, I have a therapist that calls me all the time.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
I
so
know.
awesome.
And I was thinking back on readings. Oh yeah, I did. You probably don't remember Chris Everett.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and Stephanie Tollison, the whole 10. I was in Phoenix. I was their mascot for the tennis game. So I did all their readings. Yeah, I've done a lot of, I should say, TV and radio people that were in Phoenix. I did their readings for them a lot.
Awesome.
Too.
I love that. So
Yeah.
I remember I used to do bill collections. I used to do collections back in my day before I went off on my adventure. And I did collections, so they didn't pay a bill. And let me tell you, we had some actors and actresses there, and they were interesting. They were interesting breeds. So I just was curious to see it. I won't say names here, but they were very interesting breeds. So I love that you're doing that. So I want to switch to you for a second. So Carol, you're doing all this wonderful things, and giving to people and helping people, find their places in their life and answer some of their life questions. What does Carol do for herself for self-care? What's your favorite thing to do for self-care?
Play poker.
Oh,
I can. Of course, they close all the poker down. And I also, I do take care of myself. Okay. And my treat every day, if I'm home, if I don't go out to lunch, I try to go out to lunch a lot and get away from, and of course I can control my hours pretty much.
Right.
I have to tell you, I like to Hallmark movies.
That's so funny you talk about that. My mom is getting ready to move back here with us from California to Florida. And my husband and my mother, when she was here visiting, they would watch Hallmark movies. And I would look at my husband going, it's the same actor and actresses in every movie. It's like
I know, but you know what's so good about them? I do it when I go in, I take an hour and a half break. And I've seen so many of them more than once. I hate to embarrass, but they they're happy.
They're happy endings, yes. Who wouldn't want a Hallmark?
I want a happy ending. And
everybody wants a Hallmark life.
Yeah, everybody wants a Hallmark life. And I have seen some of them, several.
My mom was here it was in June. I believe it was June. My mom was here June and July. And they were doing Christmas in July. It was July. Christmas in July and Hallmark. And I would come down like, really, Mom? Like, come on. But her and my husband, that was their thing, was to watch Hallmark movies too.
Yeah, it's my time. I would never sit down and just watch them. It's my specific time of day that I do. And also I do work out. I mean, I work out, and not as much as I used to. I mean, I was an athlete with, winning medals and trophies and everything, and racquetball, tennis, and skiing.
Awesome.
I walk and I work out with weights, and I meditate. And I do a page of manifests every day. I write about how I'm grateful and what I have. And also I do manifests for clients too. And I have a special one and when they have the ninth house, that's the house of philosophy. I give them a manifest to help them whatever problem they have in life. Like, I'm a good and wonderful person. I'm following my best path in life. I'm a good and loving person. I have my perfect relationship. And I tell them to write it 3 times in the morning, 6 times at night, and 6 times in the afternoon, 9 times at night. That is a numerological lucky path to follow.
Awesome.
And also think about them and say them to yourself and believe them. And you say things enough. When here's one of the interesting thoughts. If you say, I'm going to quit doing that, I'm going to quit smoking. So what I've done is I'm focusing on quitting on the smoking.
Right.
Instead of saying, I am going ahead each day and I'm not smoking anymore.
Right.
I'm not smoking.
I love that.
Yes. That's her whole theory about Abraham Hicks, is that to focus on, I'm never going to call those clients again. And that becomes, you think about it. You have a bad thing happen with something, you focus on it.
Right.
And I'm just learning this. I'm trying, because, life is a whole learning process. We never get there.
Yep. It's always continue learning something new.
Yes. And you wake up and we all have, like you told me about your son. I have a son who's alive and well, but he hasn't spoken to me in 15 years.
Mm.
So it's almost like he's not there at all, because he's never going to talk to me again. Nothing I did personally, but I went through a lot of therapy, and I found out, it had nothing to do with me. And he's very good friends with his father, who was abusive. So they always say the abuser is always elevated. And
yeah, absolutely.
So I know what that pain is, even though he's still alive and leading a good life, and well. And he was learning disabled and didn't think he'd graduate from high school. He has a PhD today.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome. What a great.
So I know he's got a good life and I'm grateful, but he's not part of my life and never will be again. I mean, that's the way it's going to be. Right. So I know what it is. And I don't know, I'm not going to say that death is worse or easier.
No, but yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Because
absolutely. I mean, you are grieving. You have a grieving. Yeah. You're grieving the relationship. Yeah. Oh, no, I totally understand. My father, my son, Matthew, he was adopted. He was born of our heart. He was mixed race. When we did our list, like before we committed to adopting Matthew, we went through our friends and family and who we thought would be around Matthew. Would it be a good thing to bring a child into our lives, that these people are around us a lot? And my dad never showed up on the list of being concerned. And as Matthew became and grew into a teenager, my parents had divorced and my dad was living with us for a little bit. And I found out that my dad was just not very well. And so I found out later my dad married and divorced a second wife. I went to go visit her one time where I was in her town, and she's like, I have to share something with you. And she shared that, you tell your kids, put your stuff away. You always know where it's at, right? And my son could never find his cleats. I'm like, well, your football equipment's there. Why wouldn't you put your cleats with your football equipment? He's like, Mom, I swear I did. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. They're not there. I didn't take them. Well, come to find out, because then they would show up. I'm like, oh, you found your cleats. He goes, you must have put them back. I'm like, I didn't do that. Come to find out, my dad was hiding my son's cleats because he wanted to hurt him. He was also telling my son that we should give him back. At a teenager, we should give him back. He became was calling him horrible racist names and all this stuff. So I sat in her driveway for almost an hour and a half trying to figure out, how do I process this? And the first thing that came to me, like I prayed, I sat in my car and I prayed to God and said, please help me help me see and understand what I need to do. And I came to the decision to write my dad an obituary of being my father, that he no longer deserved the privilege of being my father, because these are my children. And if you behave this way to one of my children, this is not who I want in my life, nor do I want my children to be empowered by somebody with that kind of negative thought. So I wrote this obituary. I sent it to my kids, my nephews, my brother, my sister. I wrote it so well that my sister actually thought my dad had died. I'm like, no, go back and read it.
You send it to your dad too?
I sent it to my dad. Now here's an
good for you. I like, because he is not worthy of being a grandfather.
So the really cool thing is then I called my son, who, I think he was like 16, 17 at the time. Right now this happened. And I told him, I said, I'm really sorry. And this is when you raise your kids really well. He's like, Mom, it's not your fault. It's Papa's fault. And that was his choice to do that, not your choice. And I said, thank you. Well, then years later, he said to me, if you ever want Papa back into your life, I'm okay. I'm like, nope, I'm not okay. I made the decision. That's not who I want to be around. And I went back to when my parents divorced. So when my parents divorced, I was in my 40s. And I was going through this retreat at church, and I got to sit down with our pastor. And I said, I feel like I'm being torn between their divorce. And he said, Pearl, you don't pick your parents. Your parents are picked for you. God picks your parents are. You can love them, but this is your life. These are your boundaries, and you have to set your boundaries. And from that day forward, he said, you can bring them back into your game of life if they play by your rules. And if they don't, it's okay for them to sit on the bench. And so I did that. I did send that obituary to my father. Well, evidently he never read it, because this past year, when my mom got sick, he reached out. He found, because I haven't blocked on my phone, he must have found my old business number, which my husband now has. And he called the number, and he's like, I want to know about your mom. And I called him. I said, you knowing about my mom is no longer a privilege. You're not married any longer, and I'm not going to provide that information. And he called me all kinds of names. I said, whatever. So I hung up, and I called him by his first name. I didn't call him Dad, because in my mind, he's not my father. And so he called. He must have finally read my message, because I called him from my phone, and he must have finally. Here it is, 2.5, 3 years later, that he finally reads a message, and he didn't have nice things to say. And I said to him, I go, well, these are your actions. Your actions have results, and you did not. Your actions were not appropriate. And then he also, because now my son, it's almost a year that my son had passed when he finally reads a message, and he said some nice, not so nice things about my son's passing. And in my head, I said, and my response to him was like, I resent him the obituary. I said, that response is why you received this obituary.
Why did he feel this way about him?
Why what?
Why did he feel so negative towards him?
My son was mixed race. He became racist towards my son.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he became racist towards my son. And I was like, that's not acceptable. And that's why I said, never on our list was my father on that list of who might be racist towards our child. Because had he been, I know God brought Matthew to our life for a reason, but had he been on that list, I don't know that we would have adopted Matthew, because I wouldn't have wanted to put a child through that. So, for what you were saying about your son, I'm sorry you're going through that. And you are right. It is different, but it's still grief. It's just like we grieve a divorce. We grieve a job that we love. We grieve, a loss of a child, a parent. We go through a grief. They're all different types of grieving.
Right.
But we have to
agree
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also one thing is that I read recently, don't get too high on your kids or too low on them, and they're disappointed, because once you bring them up, they are people that are gone, and and that's it.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I love that. No,
that's so
I want to ask you, what is your? This is silly. I don't mean title, but what do you call yourself? What, a coach, or how do you?
So I'm a mental. So I'm a mental fitness life coach. I help women step into the power of the word no to others and yes to themselves, so that they have the boundaries around relationships that they need to have.
Okay. So you're a relationship coach.
Yep.
In a way, yes. But yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, all right. So I just looked at the clock. Our time is running out, but okay. I want us to, I always do this, and I already told Carol we were going to do this, so I'm not surprising her. We have our Better Questions, Better Life cards, and you can go to betterquestionsbetterlife.com. These are not my cards. My friend Carol and her friend Diane did these. But I love these cards. My sons have a deck of these cards as well. So, Carol, I'm going to shuffle. You're going to tell me when to stop, and we're going to read the card. So here we go.
Okay.
Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay. So your card says, how am I expanding my influence? How are you expanding your influence?
Wow. That's really good. Okay. Well, I've just hired somebody who is going to really who understands the digital marketing better than anybody else. And she is going to work at it. Absolutely. That's one of our goals. We're expanding my influence, because I feel, it sounds corny. I feel there's just so many people yet I can't reach that I want to reach. And I would be there if I have to be seen more, and we're going to figure out how to make that happen with, sincerity. Like I said, I love helping people, and I love getting paid for it, because that also, again, even if it wasn't the money, is the fact that I've done free charts before, and I always regret it.
Yeah.
They don't appreciate it. They think, no, it doesn't mean anything.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And they was one person I did a preach. I was going to do one. She stood me up 5 times. I said, yeah.
Right. I love that you found something. And that's a really good point to end the show, to end the conversation on, is that if you are listening to us today and you find that there's something you need to help in your life, just reach out, because it's important to know that you're not alone. Whether we have every Sunday evening, we have what's called our Shiro League, where we show up at 8 p.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern on Zoom. It's a way for us to build our self-care, our self-worth, set goals for what we want for the year. We have finance guest speakers that come in. We have speakers from all different realms of, from your mental fitness to your spiritual being, all of that stuff. We have that to come in and share. And so
I'd like to learn about that.
Yeah. So Carol, will you share how people can reach you?
Okay. Well, they can reach me on TikTok, of course. And that's AstroStarr 4. ASTROSTARR 4. And there's my website. The website's the easiest thing. It is carolstarrastrologer.com. You can't get easier than that. Yeah.
Okay, and I want to remind everybody too that when you go, tell everybody TikTok again, because listen, everybody, when you go to TikTok, people try to copy you or take what you're doing, because when they see you're successful, they want to copy you or they want to steal from you. And I reached out to Carol and I said, Carol, you have a lot of people who are copying you. So Carol, tell them again, what is the correct TikTok?
Yeah, because I erase them every day and they come back. It's Astro, ASTRO, and then Starr with 2 R's, STARR with the number 4 after. A lot of them have 36 underlines to this. Look for AstroStarr, because that is the correct one.
AstroStarr 44.
No, 4, just 4.
Oh, I'm sorry, AstroStarr 4. So make sure you're getting the right one, but also, like she said, and we'll put all that in the show notes as well if you're listening to us. And I want to thank you so much, Carol, for coming on and having this fun conversation we had today. And
I loved it.
Yeah, I'm glad. And I want to remind all the listeners that, we talked about our pajama retreat. We have spots available for next year's retreat. So you can go to wslivingretreats.com. That's wslivingretreats.com. And if you want to be around women who are going to uplift you and help you find your radiance by helping you glowing up in your life, that's what we're going to be doing next September 12th to the 16th. And you can go online. We have payment plans from pay in full all the way out to 12-month payment plans. So again, wslivingretreats.com. And I just want to remind each and every one of you, again, as you come into this world and you're listening to us today or watching us, you are this beautiful oyster. You're a little rough on the outside, but as we start helping you find that GPS roadmap, you will find your inner pearl of greatness. And I hope you go out today and keep shining that pearl. Have a great day.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk